What are you talking about this year, Mike?
So the idea of the trend report is to kind of take the temperature of the business, and that's easier said than done. If you think about all of those exhibitors that Kai has mentioned, all of those visitors, there's lots and lots of products, lots and lots of companies, lots of different elements in all those different supply chains. And where do you look? You know, where do you find that pulse to take that temperature? It's quite difficult. What we try to do is try and take a kind of representative sample from all these different parts of the supply chain. So we set ourselves the task of speaking to a retailer, speaking to a major supplier, speaking to somebody who's really big on branding, speaking to one or two different technology providers, and all these different people in between. So we've got 8 interviews in there, and we think they kind of sum up the key trends that are representative of what's going on in the business right now.
And so let's take some of those key trends. What do you see them? Take a few of them and tell me about them.
You know, they kind of divide up into, I suppose, into challenges, things that are kind of thrown at the business and they have to deal with them. And, you know, Kai, I knew your English was excellent. You used the word resilience. Resilience is kind of the word that, you know, these companies are having to use, they're having to employ to react to some of those challenges. So things like cost inflation, and some of that is driven by the war in Ukraine, energy prices, the cost of inputs, and the difficulty that presents in producing products and supplying them and shipping them. That's a big trend. And also then the climate as well, the climate challenge, the environment. That's, you know, everyone uses the word sustainability. They're aiming for sustainability, and that's because that climate trend is so important. So we've looked at those 2 areas. We've also looked at ethics as well. We had a big interview at the start of the report with Franco Rodriguez, who's the Global Sourcing Director of Aldi Sud, or Aldi South, talking about giving a living wage to banana producers. All of the bananas they source, they're the biggest banana buyer in Europe, and they see it as very important that they raise their game in terms of ethical responsibility. So there are those challenges, and then there are also the opportunities. There are the exciting new technologies. We spoke to a company that's using AI to improve quality control. We spoke to a company, Organifarms, which is automating harvesting of berries, and they're taking that to a new level in places like Germany and the Netherlands for berries. Yeah, lots of other kind of technological ideas in there that can drive the business forward. So challenges and opportunities. One of our interviews in that report is with Rory Byrne, who's the CEO of Dole, and Dole, having merged, Total Produce merged with Dole Food Company to form Dole, and that's now far and away the biggest fruit and vegetable company in the world. It was very telling what he had to say about, you know, I asked him about the ups and downs, the challenges there are at the moment, particularly in terms of consumer demand and the cost of living. And he told me, well, you know, this is a very hardy, a very tough business. This is a fruit and vegetable business that knows how to get through challenges. And it's interesting, you know, we say we're back to normal here in Berlin. That's very true, back to normal at Fruit Logistica. That's very reassuring for the trade, I think, because actually it's very abnormal out there in the market. There's some very difficult things going on. Another person we talked to was Philippe Binard of Freshfell Europe, who will be known to many people. And he said kind of a similar thing. You know, if you think back to the E. coli crisis, or you think back to when Russia invaded Crimea and there was a block on EU produce there, the dependence that there was, for example, Polish apples into Russia, was huge. But they've managed to kind of withstand that storm and move on to brighter things. And I think the feeling is that it's going to be a very difficult year or two, but there is always light at the end of the tunnel. There's always something positive coming along.